All right, so get today's deep dive. It's about attention,
Okay.
but like not just like, finishing a report or even just like really zoning in on this podcast,
Yeah,
even though we're glad you're here, but like we're talking about attention on like a whole other level.
exactly. Yeah, we're going way deeper than just like everyday focus here.
Right. Yeah.
We're diving into this lecture transcript, actually,
Okay.
from Archangel Michael called Attention.
Interesting.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. We're not suddenly like, diving into religious doctrine or anything,
Right.
but we're approaching this text as a really unique lens to kind of understand this idea of attention.
Yeah, you know me, I'm always up for a good perspective shift.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, like, think about this, right? Most of the time, we think about attention as this, like, finite thing we have. Like, there's only so much to go around.
Yeah.
But this Archangel Michael guy, he's suggesting it's more about, like, cultivating a quality of attention.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
So it's not just how much we have, it's how we're using it.
exactly. He describes it as, like, this active force inside of us.
Okay.
Like, instead of just passively focusing on things, right, your attention is almost like this muscle that you can strengthen.
Okay.
And the stronger that muscle gets, the more you can invite presence and awareness into your life.
That's kind of a game changer
Right.
to think about it like that. Instead of just like this thing I have to like ration out. You know what I mean? It's
Exactly.
like, how do I make it stronger?
Yeah.
So how do we do that? How do we build those attention muscles?
Well, according to this lecture, a big part of it is understanding what's holding us back.
Right.
And Archangel Michael, he has a very interesting take on that.
What's that?
He points to the ego.
Wait, the ego. Now hold on a second.
Yeah.
Isn't that getting into like self-esteem seminar territory?
Right.
What's that have to do with attention?
So this is where it gets really interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not talking about ego in the sense of being like self-absorbed.
Oh.
He's talking about that constant chatter in our minds.
Oh.
That voice that's always analyzing, judging, worrying, planning.
You're reading my mind.
Right. And he argues that it's actually this ego that distracts us from true attention, from being fully present.
Okay, so it's like our ego has FOMO, like it's afraid of missing out.
Yeah,
And so it pulls us away from what's actually happening right now.
exactly. And that's the opposite of what this text encourages. It's less about giving your ego what it wants and more about creating this space where that chatter fades so that deeper understanding can emerge.
So how do we do that? Because if our ego is constantly trying to like pull us away, and we're trying to cultivate attention,
Right.
how do we actually make that happen?
So that's where this idea of tension comes in.
Okay.
Archangel Michael talks about this as a pathway to presence,
Okay.
which might sound a little counterintuitive at first.
Tension? Yeah, that doesn't sound super relaxing.
Right. It's not tension in the way that we typically think of it.
Okay.
Think of it more like the tension a dancer feels when they're finding their balance.
Okay.
It's not about being stressed or anxious.
Right.
It's more so that focused energy of holding yourself in that space of awareness, of resisting that pull to get lost in thought.
So it's not about like forcing our minds to be blank.
Right.
It's more about creating a focus.
Exactly. It's like we're creating this magnetic field within ourselves.
Okay.
And that magnetic pull requires like a certain level of internal tension to hold it.
Huh. Interesting.
And it's within that stillness, that space between our thoughts,
Yeah.
that the real magic happens.
So if we can find that stillness, then we can tap into that power of attention.
That's what he seems to be suggesting. Yeah. And he even tells a story about being asked how long it takes to achieve enlightenment.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
intrigued.
Right.
So did he like give a number?
Okay. So get this.
Yeah.
His response is, we're already behind and 24 hours isn't enough.
Wow.
So it's this idea that, it's not about reaching some finish line, right?
Right. It's a practice.
It's an ongoing practice. It's this constant state of becoming.
So it's not about like getting to this like perfect state of attention. It's more about like recognizing that our minds are going to wander.
Right.
And we just got to kind of keep bringing it back.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about noticing when our attention has drifted without judgment and gently guiding it back.
But see, that's like a Herculean effort these days.
Oh, tell me about it.
Right. Our phones are like engineered to pull us out of the moment.
Exactly.
So how do we even begin to find that stillness like you're talking about?
So Archangel Michael has this really interesting suggestion.
Okay.
He says, instead of just like trying to think your way into stillness,
Yeah.
use your physical sensations as an anchor.
Oh, like grounding techniques.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Focusing on your breath, your feet on the ground, things like that.
I've heard of those.
He suggests paying attention to how your body moves differently when you are truly present.
Okay.
Like when you're fully engaged in a conversation or really savoring a meal.
Okay.
There's a certain quality to your movement.
Without the phone at the dinner table.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
He says, when you're truly present, there's this fluidity, there's this effortlessness.
Okay.
But then when our mind is racing, our body kind of reflects that with these jerky, hurried movements.
So it's like our bodies are always kind of reflecting what's going on up here.
Exactly.
Even if we don't realize it.
Yeah. And he argues that by paying attention to those physical sensations, to how our bodies move in the world, we can actually train ourselves to become more present.
Interesting. So we're working with the physical. But what about the mental? Like, how do we deal with those thoughts? Because they're always going to be there, right?
Absolutely. And that's, we were talking about the ego being this master of distraction.
Right.
He suggests this exercise. He says, when a distracting thought arises, instead of getting caught up in it, just try to observe it.
Oh, so just notice it.
Yeah, just notice it.
Don't engage. Don't judge.
Exactly. And the more we practice this kind of observation,
Mm-hmm.
the more we realize that we are not our thoughts.
Mm. Yeah.
We have the power to choose which thoughts we're going to engage with and which ones we're going to let pass by.
Okay, so it's like we're changing our relationship to our thoughts.
Yes.
So we're not like shutting our thoughts off.
Right.
We're just like changing how we relate to them.
Exactly. And here's what's really interesting, right? He doesn't frame this as some kind of advanced meditation technique.
Right.
This is like a simple shift in perspective that anybody can practice.
Which honestly can be a relief.
Yeah.
Because, there's so much pressure to be doing more to get to this place.
Right? Like we're constantly striving.
Yes.
And he's saying no, this is your natural state.
Yeah.
It's already within you.
Yeah.
You just have to remember how to access it.
Yeah, I like that. It's like we're already we just got to remember.
Exactly.
But, he keeps calling attention the key.
Yeah.
The key to what's the lock that it unlocks?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
He doesn't come right out and say it, but he implies that it's this key to this deeper level of experience, to a more vibrant and meaningful way of being in the world.
So it's not just I'm calmer or I'm less stressed.
Right.
It's something way bigger than that.
Exactly. He suggests that true attention, this deep presence, allows us to experience our lives more fully, to connect with ourselves and the world around us in this deeper, more meaningful way.
Oh, it's we've been watching the movie on this tiny little black and white TV.
Yes.
And someone just handed us the remote to the 80-inch screen with surround sound.
That's a great analogy.
Oh, it's an upgrade.
It's you're upgrading your entire operating system.
Yes.
Not just downloading a new app.
Exactly. So if we had to kind of distill this down, our deep dive into attention.
Yeah.
What's the biggest takeaway here for our listeners?
I think if I had to boil it down to one sentence,
Okay.
it's that attention is a choice.
Oh.
In every single moment,
Okay.
we can choose to get swept away by distractions, or we can choose to cultivate that inner stillness, that quality of presence that allows us to really experience the richness of life.
So it's not about being perfect at it.
No, not at all.
It's just about recognizing when we've wandered off and kind of coming back.
Exactly. And the more we do it,
Yeah.
the more natural it becomes.
Really, we're training those attention muscles we were talking about.
Yes.
Well said.
Thank you.
So to our listeners, we'll leave you with this. What if you started treating your attention as this precious resource, like something to be cultivated and cherished?
Mm.
How might that change how you move through the world? How might it change how you experience your life?
Great questions.
Until next time, be present, be curious, and keep on diving deep.